Akira had never seen an apartment quite like Ren's. It was the kind of place you'd expect in a future dystopia, a sterile, sleek shell of chrome and glass, a stark contrast to the chaotic world outside. The minimalist decor, devoid of any warmth, made Akira feel as though he was stepping into a museum. Everything about it was carefully arranged: the sharp edges of the furniture, the seamless lines of the walls, the glass-topped tables, and the gleaming, almost unnatural lighting. It was like something straight out of a futuristic crime thriller, a place that could have easily belonged to a corporation CEO in a world like Psycho-Pass. The apartment exuded a coldness that Akira could almost feel against his skin, the kind of coldness that made his heart race with discomfort. The silence inside was unnerving, as though the air itself was holding its breath. It felt like a place where emotions were not welcome, where even the slightest movement would disturb the perfection that had been crafted. When Akira stepped inside, the sensation of being observed, even in a place so immaculate, almost made his skin crawl. Ren had shown him the way, leading him through the sleek hallways, his footsteps echoing in the empty space. Akira noticed how Ren moved like he owned the world, a man so at ease in this environment that he seemed part of it, just as cold, just as efficient. But that wasn't the real shock. The real shock came when Akira accidentally triggered the apartment's smart system. He had been fiddling with the various gadgets, the control panel, trying to figure out how to turn on the lights or adjust the temperature. His fingers brushed over a sleek metallic panel that he assumed was a touch sensor. Without warning, alarms blared, their shrill wails filling the apartment, and the lights flickered wildly. A deep mechanical voice boomed, "Intruder detected, initiating security protocol." Akira's heart jumped into his throat, panic surged through him, as the high-tech alarm system went into full lockdown. The walls seemed to tighten, and the apartment felt smaller. For a moment, he felt like he was trapped in a cage of his own making, his mistake echoing through the cold space. Ren appeared in the doorway, eyebrows raised, but instead of anger, there was amusement in his eyes. "Well, that's one way to test the system." His tone was dry, yet there was something in the way he laughed that sent a jolt through Akira. It wasn't just a laugh, it was a softening, the first real crack in Ren's icy exterior. Akira hadn't expected it, and it left him momentarily disoriented. "Sorry," Akira mumbled, still flustered as he frantically tried to deactivate the alarm. But Ren walked over casually, pressing a few buttons on his phone. Within seconds, the alarm stopped, and the lights returned to normal. Ren smirked, the coldness in his voice returning, but with an odd warmth. "You'll get used to it." His voice was softer now, less detached. Akira glanced at him, unsure of what had just happened. The tension between them shifted slightly, but he couldn't place it. Ren was so hard to read. Despite the coldness of the apartment, Akira felt a strange pull toward it. The sharpness, the crisp edges, the near perfection. There was something strangely comforting in the controlled chaos that was Ren's life. It was something Akira had never experienced before, and maybe that was why, when Ren offered him the spare room, Akira didn't hesitate to accept. Days passed, and Akira tried to adapt to the new rhythm of his life in Ren's world. There was a quiet unease at first, a distance that neither of them seemed to be able to bridge. Yet, as time went on, something shifted. Ren's detached demeanor softened in small, unexpected ways. He began bringing Akira small gifts, things that seemed entirely out of place in the ice-cold apartment: a pair of Totoro socks one evening, a plush cat keychain the next. At first, Akira didn't know how to react. He had never been one to expect gifts, especially from someone as seemingly distant as Ren. But these gestures, these quirky out-of-character offerings, did something to him. They didn't make sense, Ren didn't make sense, but Akira started to feel a warmth in the coldness of his world. One evening, after a particularly intense nightmare, Akira woke up drenched in sweat, heart pounding in his chest. His body trembled, and the apartment, usually so quiet and still, felt suffocating. He tried to calm himself, but the dark shadows seemed to press in on him from all sides. Ren's apartment had a way of amplifying the silence, making even the smallest sound feel like a threat. Ren appeared at his door moments later, his expression unreadable, but his eyes, they were different. For the first time, Akira saw something there, a flicker of concern, maybe, but also something else, something that was hard to define. "You okay?" Ren asked, his voice quiet, an edge of uncertainty hidden beneath the cool tone. Akira nodded, swallowing hard. He didn't trust his voice just yet, not with everything that was churning inside him. Without another word, Ren stepped into the room, his presence oddly calming. He didn't ask questions, didn't push Akira to explain the nightmare, or the panic that still had a tight grip on him. Instead, he simply sat on the edge of the bed, his posture relaxed but solid, like a quiet force. There was no judgment, no demand for Akira to talk, just a quiet empathy that Akira wasn't used to. After a few long minutes, Ren spoke again, his voice low but firm. "You can stay here tonight, no need to explain, just if you need to, just sleep." Akira felt a strange magnetism in the air between them, an almost invisible thread pulling at his chest. There was nothing romantic about it, nothing overt, but the tension hung there, thick and undeniable. Ren didn't kiss him, didn't try to pull him into any kind of romantic embrace. He simply offered the warmth of his presence, a quiet invitation to seek solace without strings. Akira hesitated for only a moment before nodding, the words caught in his throat. He climbed into the bed, Ren still sitting on the edge, watching him with an unreadable expression. For the first time since he'd arrived, Akira didn't feel entirely alone. The apartment, still as cold as ever, didn't seem quite so suffocating, and Ren, despite the layers of ice he wore, seemed just a little less distant. Akira closed his eyes, unsure of what to make of it all, but in the quiet stillness of the room, he felt something he hadn't felt in a long time: comfort. That night, Akira didn't sleep deeply, but he slept, and as the days went by, he found himself adjusting to this strange unspoken rhythm with Ren, a rhythm that was equal parts unsettling and magnetic. Neither of them spoke about the night he spent in Ren's bed, but it lingered, unspoken in the space between them. A strange understanding had formed between them. Neither of them was in a hurry to define what it meant, but there was something real in it, something that felt like the beginning of something both terrifying and inevitable. And so, Akira settled into this new world, a world that felt colder, but also more honest in its silence, a world where the boundaries were blurred, but the tension was palpable. He didn't know where this would lead, but for the first time in a long time, he wasn't sure if he cared. The offer came with the sharp click of a pen, the crisp sound of paperwork sliding across the cold, polished surface of Ren's desk. Akira stared at the contract in front of him, the weight of Ren's eyes heavy on his back. "I want you to work for me, as my personal assistant," Ren said, his voice calm, but there was an edge to it, something calculating that Akira couldn't ignore. Akira hesitated. The words hung in the air, thick with implication. It wasn't just a job offer, it was a demand wrapped in silk. Akira could feel it. Ren didn't just want someone to organize his schedule or take care of his paperwork. He wanted to keep Akira close, too close for comfort. He wanted control, and Akira could sense the danger. It was like stepping into the lion's den, like making a deal with a demon. The tension was palpable as Akira sat there, the silence between them stretching thin. Ren's eyes never left him, calculating, waiting for him to make his move. Akira's stomach tightened, but something inside him stirred. Was it fear, or was it something else? Curiosity, or maybe something darker, a desire to understand Ren, to see what was beneath that icy exterior. "I'll do it," Akira said, finally breaking the silence. His voice was steady, though his heart was pounding. He knew this wasn't just about work, it was about being drawn into something that was impossible to escape once you were in. But the draw of Ren's world, of his presence, was too strong. "I'll work for you." Ren's lips curled into the faintest smile, a flicker of approval in his cold, calculating eyes. "Good," he said, sliding the contract toward Akira. "Welcome to my world." It felt like a mistake the moment the words left his mouth, but Akira couldn't take them back. He didn't know if he was walking into something dangerous, or if he was simply giving in to something he didn't fully understand. Either way, the path was set, and there was no turning back now. The first corporate gala Akira attended with Ren felt like stepping into a different world. The glittering chandeliers and smooth polished floors created an illusion of perfection, but behind every elegant smile and every glass of champagne, there was an undercurrent of power, manipulation, and secrets. Akira stood next to Ren, his suit fitting him too perfectly for someone who was still adjusting to the idea of being in Ren's world. The weight of Ren's presence beside him was both comforting and oppressive. Akira couldn't shake the feeling that everyone at this event was looking at them, at him, like he was a pawn in a game he didn't understand. That's when Akira's cousin Daniko appeared. Daniko, ever the energetic powerhouse, had a smile that could light up any room, and she was dressed in a sharp suit that screamed confidence. She approached Akira, her eyes scanning the room before landing on Ren. The air shifted, thick with her unmistakable presence, as she leaned in toward Akira with a grin. "If he breaks your heart," Daniko said, her voice playful, but her eyes flashing with something more dangerous, "I'll break his kneecaps." Akira couldn't help but laugh at the intensity in her voice, the fire behind her words. Daniko had always been fiercely protective of him, but this was different. There was a promise in her tone, a dangerous edge. She wasn't joking. If Ren hurt him, there would be consequences. Akira felt a sense of relief and discomfort all at once, like someone had just thrown a lifeline to him. But the rope was tangled with danger. Ren turned his attention to Daniko, his expression unreadable as he took a sip from his glass. There was a brief tense moment of silence between them, as though they were sizing each other up. Akira watched Ren's face, trying to gauge his reaction, but there was nothing there, just the usual cool detachment. Ren didn't respond to the threat, but the look in his eyes shifted. Maybe he found amusement in it, or maybe it was just another challenge. "Don't worry," Ren finally said, his voice cold, though there was something behind it, something that made Akira's heart beat faster. "I'm not in the habit of breaking hearts." The evening passed in a blur of conversations, wine, and the glint of diamonds. Akira felt more like an observer than a participant, watching the world around him, trying to find his place in it. And yet through it all, Ren was there, never far from his side. His presence, his gaze, it was all consuming. It was as though Akira had become part of Ren's world, whether he liked it or not. By the end of the night, as the last guests trickled out of the gala, Ren leaned in toward Akira. The room had quieted, the hum of conversation now replaced by a heavy silence. Akira felt the weight of Ren's words before they were even spoken. "You're mine," Ren whispered, his voice low, almost seductive in its calm. His lips brushed against Akira's hand, sending a jolt through his body. The simple gesture, so small, so intimate, felt like a claim, a mark, a promise. Akira's eyes widened, his heart racing. The words hung in the air between them, suffocating, impossible to ignore. Ren had said it so quietly, so effortlessly, but Akira felt the gravity of it, felt it deep in his chest, like a declaration that could change everything. He had agreed to work for Ren, to step into this world, but now he was being pulled deeper into it, whether he was ready or not. Akira tried to steady his breath, tried to process what had just happened, but the world around him seemed to blur. His mind raced, torn between fear and something else, something he couldn't quite name. Ren smiled, but it wasn't a smile of warmth. It was a smile that promised something far more complex, far more dangerous. He held Akira's gaze, unblinking, as though daring him to resist. But Akira didn't move. He couldn't. There was no turning back now. He had already crossed the line, and as Ren pulled him closer, as his hand lingered on Akira's, the air between them thickened with tension, the promise of something neither of them could avoid. Akira was his, and Ren had just claimed him. And Akira, he wasn't sure whether he was willing to fight, or fall deeper into this strange magnetic world. But one thing was certain, he was caught, whether he liked it or not. The luxury resort was everything Akira had expected, and yet it was so much more. The towering glass doors opened to reveal a grand lobby, shimmering marble floors reflecting the soft glow of chandeliers. Everything about it screamed opulence, the kind of place where everything was meticulously designed to be perfect, untouched. But there was a catch, a single glaring problem: no separate rooms. Akira stood frozen at the entrance of the suite, staring at the enormous space in disbelief. The suite stretched out before him, like something from a dream, or a nightmare. High vaulted ceilings, silk drapes cascading down the walls, and a bed so large it could comfortably fit a small country. It was absurd. A place built for the unattainably wealthy, the kind of room where everything was designed to make you feel small, insignificant in the face of such overwhelming luxury. He turned to Ren, but the man seemed unbothered, walking toward the room with the same confident stride he always had. His eyes glinted with something unreadable, a smile that was both distant and knowing. "This is impractical," Akira muttered, his voice strained as he followed Ren into the suite. But Ren didn't respond, as though the sheer magnificence of the place was something Akira should simply accept. Ren walked over to the massive bed, running his fingers over the soft linen, with an almost reverential touch. Akira stood by the window, watching the sprawling view of the mountains beyond, but it was impossible to ignore the feeling of claustrophobia that settled over him. It wasn't the size of the room, it was the proximity to Ren, the lingering, uncomfortable awareness of how close they were. No boundaries, no space. He tried to push it aside, tried to breathe through the discomfort, but as the evening progressed, the tension between them only grew. Akira tried to escape, to find some kind of release from the building pressure, so he went to the spa. The warm, tranquil water and soft lighting were meant to calm his nerves, but every breath felt strained. Every time he closed his eyes, he felt Ren's presence, even though the man wasn't physically there. And then it happened. Ren walked in. Akira froze. As Ren stepped into the spa, his usual cool demeanor replaced by something else, something more vulnerable. The tension was thick enough to slice with a knife. As Ren sank into the water beside him, the quiet was broken by the sound of soft moaning, followed by a barely audible gasp. Akira's eyes darted to Ren, and the sight of the man leaning back against the edge of the pool, his breath shallow and uneven, sent a wave of heat through him. The masseuse, a woman in a simple white robe, was working over Ren's shoulders, but the sound of his pleasure was enough to make Akira's heart race. It wasn't the kind of sound you'd expect from a corporate retreat. It was raw, vulnerable, real. Akira's stomach churned. He wasn't sure if he was disgusted or drawn to it. There was something so exposed about Ren in that moment, something real behind his usually composed exterior. But Akira couldn't shake the feeling of discomfort that rolled through him. It felt like an invasion of privacy, a step too far into Ren's world. Akira tried to look away, to focus on the warm water, to find some peace in it. But Ren's eyes were on him, a soft glint of something unreadable in his gaze. There was no turning away now. The air between them shifted. Ren leaned in closer, his voice a hushed whisper. "Do you ever wonder why I brought you here, Akira?" Akira opened his mouth, but no words came. He didn't know how to respond. It was a simple question, but the weight behind it was suffocating. Why had Ren brought him here? Why had he insisted on this job, on keeping Akira so close? Before he could answer, Ren reached out, brushing a damp lock of hair from Akira's forehead, his touch surprisingly tender. It was a fleeting moment, a soft graze, but it sent a jolt of electricity through Akira's chest. His breath caught in his throat as their eyes locked. "I think," Ren said softly, "I see something in you, more than just a broken boy, more than just a mistake. There's light in you, Akira, and I'm starting to wonder if it's worth saving." Akira's heart hammered in his chest. The words hung in the air between them, heavy with meaning, with something Akira couldn't yet understand. There was something about the way Ren looked at him, the way his voice trembled with an emotion Akira couldn't quite grasp, that made him feel vulnerable. It wasn't the kind of vulnerability that came from weakness. It was the kind that came from being seen, truly seen, by someone else. Ren closed the space between them, his lips hovering near Akira's ear. The air was thick, suffocating with all the things that had remained unsaid between them. Akira's mind raced, but his body reacted before he could stop it. The kiss came, slow and tentative, full of the weight of everything that had been building between them. But Akira pulled away before it could go further. His hands trembled at his sides, the world around him spinning as he took a deep breath. "I can't," he whispered, the words catching in his throat. "I can't be just temporary for you." Ren's eyes softened, though the intensity of his gaze never wavered. "You think I see you as temporary?" he asked, his voice low, like a whisper against Akira's skin. "Akira, you're not temporary, not to me." But Akira wasn't sure what to believe. Ren's world was one of shadows and walls, a place where emotions were weapons, not things to be trusted. Akira was a visitor in that world, an outsider who had been pulled in by forces he didn't fully understand. There was a long silence before Ren spoke again, his voice gentle, but filled with an intensity Akira had never heard before. "Stay with me, Akira," he said, his words slow, deliberate. "Not just tonight. Stay with me, and let me show you that there's more to this." Akira's heart pounded in his chest. He could feel the weight of Ren's words, the promise behind them, and for the first time, Akira didn't feel like he was walking alone into the unknown. That night,
As the lights of the luxury suite dimmed, Akira found himself enveloped in the slow, tender rhythm of something more than just lust. It was more than the passionate kiss they had shared. It was a moment of reverence, of two people connecting in a way that neither of them had expected. The world outside seemed distant, unreachable, as they made love, slow, tender, full of the kind of intensity that seemed to bleed through every touch, every word. Akira couldn't explain it, couldn't understand it, but in that moment, he didn't need to. He just needed to feel the truth of it. The truth that Ren saw him, not just as a job or a convenience, but as something more. And for the first time since he had stepped into Ren's world, Akira felt like he wasn't just a broken boy, he was something more. He was light. Akira's new apartment was a far cry from the cold, sleek luxury of Ren's place. The space was modest, worn out, with peeling paint and creaky wooden floors that seemed to groan under his every step. It wasn't the clean, perfect world he had briefly inhabited. This was his, raw and real. It was small, just enough room for a bed, a tiny kitchen, and a small desk, but it was his, and that made it feel like home. This was his Shibuya, a slice of independence, a place where he could breathe without feeling stifled by the overwhelming weight of someone else's expectations. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. It was messy, a little chaotic, but it was his, and for the first time in a long time, Akira felt free. This apartment, with its cracked tiles and worn edges, represented everything he had fought for: the ability to live on his own terms, away from the suffocating grip of expectations. It was his canvas, and now he was going to paint his future on it. Soon after moving in, Akira launched his online bakery, Crumbs and Chaos, something he'd always dreamed of doing. His love for baking had been a quiet secret for years, a passion he kept hidden until now. But with the launch of the bakery, it was no longer just a hobby. It was his dream, unfolding before his eyes. He started small, selling his baked goods through social media platforms, using his skills and creativity to create treats that were as chaotic and unpredictable as his life had been. Each order felt like a little victory, each positive review a reaffirmation of his choice to leave behind the corporate world. And Ren's shadow. Ren remained a constant presence in Akira's life, though not in the way he had been before. He wasn't hovering over him, demanding attention, or offering unsolicited guidance. Instead, Ren became his support, his anchor in a world that was still unfamiliar. Their dynamic shifted. Akira was no longer just Ren's assistant, no longer someone to be controlled or directed. This new phase of their relationship was built on respect for one another's independence, a subtle understanding that they could both stand alone, yet still lean on each other when needed. The love between them wasn't about possession, it was about partnership, about standing beside one another without suffocating each other. Akira's life began to find a rhythm. The bakery took off slowly at first, then gained momentum as word spread about his unique, delicious creations. He poured his heart into each batch, each order, each interaction with his customers. It was his dream, built from the ground up, and it was finally coming to life. But as with every dream, there was always the past lurking just behind it. A message came in one evening, a notification on his phone that he almost didn't open. It was from Kaito. Kaito. The name brought a flood of memories, sharp and painful. Kaito, the man who had once been everything to him, only to betray him in the most unforgivable way. The man who had shattered Akira's heart before Ren ever came into the picture. The message was simple: "Can we meet? I need to talk." For closure. Akira stared at the message for a long time, the familiar sting of anger and hurt rising in his chest. He had long moved on, or so he thought. He didn't need closure, he didn't want it, but something about the message gnawed at him, the words tugging at a part of him he didn't want to acknowledge. Maybe it was curiosity, or maybe it was a need to put the past to rest once and for all. Against his better judgment, Akira agreed to meet Kaito. He set the time and place, a small cafe in the city that held no special meaning, but enough anonymity to make the encounter feel less like a confrontation, and more like a final goodbye. The meeting was brief, as Akira had expected. Kaito apologized in his typical way, words without weight, coated in too much self-pity. He spoke about regrets, about mistakes, and about how he'd never meant to hurt Akira. But Akira didn't need to hear it. He didn't want to hear it. The man in front of him was still the same, self-centered, unable to take true responsibility for his actions. Akira listened for only as long as it took to nod, to accept the words he knew weren't genuine, and then he left. He didn't need to hear more. He didn't need Kaito's apologies anymore. But as he walked away from that meeting, something inside him shifted. The anger that had burned inside him for so long was gone. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't even closure. It was simply release. He was free of Kaito, free of the past. Akira rushed back to Ren's apartment. He didn't know why he was in such a hurry, but the need to see Ren, to be near him, was overwhelming. He needed to feel grounded, to remind himself that his life now was different, that it was his life, and that he wasn't going to let the past drag him down anymore. When he arrived, he found Ren sitting by the window, his silhouette framed by the fading light of the setting sun. The apartment felt like a different world now, a safe haven in contrast to the chaos of the past. Without a word, Akira crossed the room, his steps quick, almost desperate. Ren looked up, surprised, but didn't move, didn't speak. Akira stood there for a moment, catching his breath, before he reached out, cupping Ren's face in his hands. "I'm not letting you go," Akira whispered, the words raw, unsteady, but full of finality. His lips brushed against Ren's in a soft, tender kiss, and as they pulled away, Akira whispered again, "Don't ever ask me to let you go." Ren's eyes softened, and for the first time, Akira saw something new in them, a warmth, an understanding that hadn't been there before. "Never," Ren said, his voice steady, unwavering, and in that moment, Akira knew that he had made the right choice. He wasn't just living in the past anymore. He wasn't chasing ghosts. The future was his to shape, and Ren was a part of it, but not in the way he had once feared. They were equals now, two people who had found something rare and real, and that was enough. Akira let out a slow breath, finally at peace with the choices he had made, with the life he was building. And as he stood there, in Ren's apartment, surrounded by the quiet hum of the city outside, he realized that maybe, just maybe, he was exactly where he was meant to be.
A year had passed since Akira had taken the plunge into his new life, and now here he was, standing on Ren's rooftop, the soft glow of city lights dancing in the distance, the warmth of the evening wrapping around him like a protective embrace. The air was alive with the sounds of music, the buzz of conversations, and the occasional burst of laughter. It felt like something out of a film, something cinematic, like the final scene of Your Name or Violet Evergarden, where everything had fallen into place. The perfect moment that Akira had once thought was impossible for him to reach. The crowd was gathered in celebration, clinking glasses, congratulating him on the success of Crumbs and Chaos, his online bakery that had become a household name in the city. He had built it from nothing. No connections, no rich background, just his passion and his drive. His dream was no longer just a dream, it was a reality, and tonight was the culmination of all the hard work, sweat, and late nights that had gone into it. Akira was radiant, his smile bright and genuine, a stark contrast to the uncertain, broken boy he had once been. He was successful, happy, loved, and more importantly, he had earned it all on his own terms. Ren stood by his side, the man who had seen him through it all, no longer just the cold, distant figure who had once watched Akira from the shadows. Ren was now part of his world in a way that made Akira feel whole. Their relationship had evolved beyond mere dependence or attraction. It was a partnership, one built on trust, respect, and a shared understanding of what it meant to fight for something real. Ren's eyes followed Akira, watching him with a kind of quiet pride. When Akira turned to him, he smiled softly, a smile that was rare and unspoken, but full of meaning. He stepped forward, pulling out a small box from his pocket, one that gleamed in the soft light of the rooftop. "For you," Ren said, his voice steady, but with an edge of something that wasn't just business, but something deeper. Akira took the box, his heart beating just a little faster. He opened it slowly, revealing a small, elegant key inside, a key to something more than just a door. It was a key to everything, to the apartment, to the office, to the future, and to Ren himself. "You've earned everything you have," Ren said, his voice low, but there was a vulnerability in it that Akira had never heard before. "But now you have this, you have everything." Akira's fingers brushed over the key, the weight of it settling in his palm. It wasn't just a key, it was a promise that he wasn't alone anymore, that he had a place in this world, a place with Ren, He smiled, his heart swelling with emotion, and reached into his own pocket to pull out a small carefully wrapped box of chocolates. The chocolates were decorated with their initials, a simple but intimate gesture. Ren took the box with a surprised look, his fingers lingering for a moment on Akira's hand. The moment felt intimate, fragile, like something that had been building for a long time. Akira's gaze met Ren's, and for a brief moment, everything else disappeared. The crowd, the music, the party, it all faded into the background. The camera captured the soft exchange, the tenderness between them, as if the world had paused to take in the quiet moment. Akira, once uncertain and broken, now stood here with someone that made him feel whole. Ren, the man who had once been a stranger, was now the person who held his future in his hands. The crowd cheered, raising their glasses in celebration of Akira's success. But as the cheers died down, Ren stepped forward, his voice cutting through the noise with quiet finality. "You're mine too," he said, his words slow, deliberate. The crowd fell silent, the weight of his statement hanging in the air. Akira felt a surge of warmth wash over him. It wasn't possessiveness, it wasn't control, it was something else, something that made him feel seen, valued, loved. And as Ren's eyes locked onto his, Akira realized that this wasn't just a statement, it was a promise. The camera panned out, capturing the sweeping view of the city below, the skyline stretching out endlessly. The lights flickered in the distance, casting a soft glow over the rooftop, a silent witness to the moment of completion that Akira had reached. The future was wide open, and Akira knew, finally, that he was ready for it. The party ended late into the night, the city still buzzing beneath them, but the world around Akira and Ren had shifted. They returned to the apartment, the warmth of the evening lingering between them. There was no rush, no need to fill the silence with words. They had already said everything that mattered. In the stillness of the night, their connection deepened, not just through the physical closeness, but in something quieter, something more powerful. It was the vulnerability they shared, the understanding that they had both survived their own darkness, and found light in each other. Akira stood by the window, looking out over the city, his thoughts drifting. The past had been hard, painful even, but it was in the past now, and he wasn't running from it anymore. He wasn't hiding, he had found his way here, to this place, with Ren. Ren walked over to him, his steps soft, almost hesitant. He didn't need to say anything, his presence was enough. Akira turned to face him, and without a word, Ren wrapped his arms around him, pulling him close. There was no need for more, no need for the words they had both been too afraid to speak in the past. This moment, this quiet understanding, was all they needed. Akira spoke first, his voice barely a whisper. "Thank you for not breaking me, thank you for staying." His words were full of gratitude, full of the weight of everything they had been through together. Ren's response was simple, yet it held more meaning than any elaborate speech could. "You never asked," he said, his voice steady and calm, "but I stayed anyway." The truth of those words hung in the air, both of them knowing that it wasn't just about staying through the hard times, it was about staying through everything, about building something together. And then, in the quiet of the night, Ren took Akira's hand, leading him to the center of the rooftop. The city hummed softly beneath them, the noise of the world fading away. There was no music, no applause, just the sound of their breathing, their hearts beating in time with each other. They danced. It was slow, tender, a moment that felt both infinite and fleeting. They didn't need words, they didn't need anything but this moment of stillness, this dance under the stars. And as they moved together, Akira realized that he wasn't alone anymore. He wasn't just surviving, he was living, and for the first time in his life, the future didn't scare him, it was his. And Ren was there beside him, not just as a figure in the background, but as a partner, someone who had chosen to stay. The camera panned out, capturing the two of them under the vast sky, the city lights stretching out below. The night was quiet, the stars shining above them, and for the first time in a long time, Akira felt like everything was exactly as it should be. It wasn't perfect, it wasn't always easy, but it was theirs, and that was enough.